Thank you for joining our Matchmaker session today. My name is Juliana Weber, and I'm the coordinator for CityLAB for the City of Hamilton. At these events, we hear from staff members and faculty with challenges that they've proposed, and then we connect them with courses in the area at Mohawk College, McMaster University, and Redeemer University to find a good match to tackle these projects. Today, we are joined by Jay Adams, Senior Project Manager of Customer Experience for HSR Transit, and he will be discussing ideas around a reliability survey of their real-time analytics for the bus route system. Jay, I'll ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about your role and what you do for the City of Hamilton.
Great stuff. Hi, everyone. So I'm as you mentioned, I'm a project manager on our customer experience team. We're a relatively new team within transit, focused really on our ridership growth. So really getting as many new customers on our system as possible and really making sure that our current customers are really having a great experience on transit and make sure that transit is their first choice in transportation. That's our motto. We really want to have people consider transit for a variety of reasons, of course, one being really the environmental impact with all of the cars on the road today, making sure that we can get as many people using transit effectively as possible. Is a really good thing to address the climate emergency that the city and the world is in at the moment. And also for many other reasons, it's a really great and important service in the community, connecting people to educational opportunities, employment opportunities, really social opportunities within the community. So we really do see ourselves as an enabling service within the community, making sure that we can help people get on with their lives and have a better outcome as a result. So.
Great, and as Hamilton continues to become more dense and more populated, transit is going to become more and more important. It's really It's good to have such a forward-thinking team tackling the HSR. So if you could give us a bit of a background of the project, a bit about the real-time suite that you have, and maybe some of the challenges that are currently happening, and what you see, what you would like to see happening with the data that you have.
Sure. So HSR has a really strong commitment to provide as high quality information as possible to our customers so that they can plan their trips really effectively. And traditionally, many people are probably aware, if they've ridden our service in the past or years, or if they are a current customer, they'll know probably about our bus check service, which is a way to phone in and get information about when your bus is going to arrive. And over the last several years, we've invested in the expansion of those tools to include a website, like an online version of that trip planning tool, a mobile app experience. People can text us for their next bus. They can use our bus check system. It still works, of course. And what we want to do is make sure that we give people as many options as possible to get real-time information about when their buses are going to arrive and how they can plan their trips throughout the city. So we've invested quite a bit in these services. We're very committed to making sure that these services are really as effective as possible and as reliable as possible. And that's where we are today, is really wanting to understand. We're about to get underway with promoting these tools to our customers. They've been available for some time now, and we really do want to promote them and have as many people as possible using them. And as part of that, we want to be able to say that for the most reliable information, please go to our HSR Now suite of tools and choose the tool that you want to use. And before we go out and say that, we just really want to be confident that that's as true as possible. So we believe that they're very reliable. We know that they're real time, so they do track our buses as they move through the system, and we report that minute by minute, that real-time information to our customers. But we also know that reliability is something that our customers have told us is very important to them. In fact, it's when we did our research with customers, we surveyed thousands and thousands of our customers, and we asked them, what are the most important things to you? And reliability rose to the top. It was the key thing that customers said was important to them. And they also told us that they weren't satisfied with our reliability currently. And so that gave us a really a moment of pausing for thought and really trying to understand, what does that mean if customers are telling us that they don't quite have as much satisfaction with our reliability as they want, and it's the most important thing to them. So we're not going to be able to keep those customers if we can't solve that problem.
Right. I mean, trusting the system to get them to work on time is a huge factor of taking transit. So I know that for example, if I'm going to take the transit down to Toronto, I'll use Google to kind of figure out the route. So what is the particular value of improving these planning tools for customers when there's other options available, other third-party options?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so, and we encourage our customers to use whatever tool they want to use. The key thing about it is that it's our data going to Google, and it's our data going to Transit app, and it's our data going to our own suite of products. So no matter what tool the customer is using, it's our data that is the starting point of that. And so we really do want to understand that piece first. Is our data as accurate as possible? Because it's the one feeding all of those other tools. The importance of having our own suite of tools, there's a few key things. The first is having a really direct connection with our customers. So having those tools, for instance, a mobile app in particular, allows us, if our customers download it, to really directly communicate to our customers, to share information through notifications, to be able to have a model where we could perhaps offer a customer satisfaction survey through our app and that sort of thing. So it's a really great connection directly to our customers. That's really important as a transit agency, certainly for us. The second thing there is that all of those services are fantastic. I mean, of course, Google and Transit app, these are really impressive tools and great user experiences. But what we need is a commitment to know that we're always going to be able to provide that information to our customers. And so those third-party tools, they're in the business of making money. And that might mean that at some point there might be costs involved, or what you're starting to see right now is those services going towards more of a mobility as a service platform, meaning that they're offering other options within the mix. So there's Uber can be one of the options that gets presented to you. And so as an agency, we're in the business of promoting our own service to our customers and not necessarily promoting other services such as Uber. We want more customers riding our service and not necessarily riding those rideshare services. So we have to start to think about that as an ecosystem, what it means for us we want to continue to support those tools because of course our customers are using them in big numbers, but we want to make sure that we have our own tools as well, that we can control that environment and that ecosystem and make sure that we're promoting our own product, which is our service, in the best way possible to our customers.
That's a very good point. So the HSR will not try to upsell you to other
Yeah,
companies.
I mean, eventually there is a profit model for those big companies, and they do have to monetize, and we are starting to see some of that happening with Google Maps, for instance. It was free initially, but now we have to pay to use Google Maps, and and that's not necessarily a negative thing. We still want to be aware of what's happening out in the industry, but ultimately it's our data feeding those other services, and so even for that reason alone, we want to make sure that that data that we're putting into our own tool as well as out into the open data space, the quality of that is really reliable.
I mean, that really shows the value of having a specific app for the HSR. So how important is perceived or actual reliability to customer behavior and transit use?
Yeah, so we can talk about a few things there, but the key for us when the research we had done was customer satisfaction research. And so when we did that research, what we found was that 56% of customers told us they were satisfied, which was positive. We were pleased about that. But that means 44% of our customers were either neutral or dissatisfied. And so that's a big number for us. And so with my mandate to grow ridership, I know that if we start bringing new customers onto the system and they have a negative experience, they're going to leave the service at some point, and they're not going to be happy, and they're not going to come back. So what we really want to do before we go out and really trying to attract those new riders to the system is make sure that our current riders are more satisfied with the service. And when we asked our customers what what the key things were that were driving their dissatisfaction, reliability was a key thing for them. It was the most important indicator amongst the many that we asked about. And we see this across transit industry research everywhere. In fact, a great anecdote is currently CityLAB was doing some research, so it's Canada-wide, not necessarily HSR, but our trends are usually pretty similar. They asked what would get more people riding as we're recovering and getting out of the pandemic, and 54% said safety, so top of mind, a key issue for them. 80% said if I had better quality real-time information. So even in the pandemic, reliability is the most important thing to customers. So this really spoke to us. It's consistent over time. It's the thing that customers, when they have a negative experience, one negative experience can really impact you much more than maybe 50 really positive experiences, because like you say, it can make you late for work. It can make you miss that important thing that you needed to get to. So we know it's really, really important and a key driver of satisfaction for us. And that's why we're so heavily focused on what we can do to improve that. The flip side to this is we have our own way of measuring some of these things, and we do try and measure our own reliability, but it was actually CityLAB that made us really think about this differently, because they came to us and they had been doing some research with transit agencies in terms of reliability, and they actually came to us and said among the Canadian municipalities that they actually found HSR was one of the more unreliable data sets. So that kind of gave us, oh, wait a minute there, we have to really understand that issue. If a player like CityLAB, which sees everyone's data, is coming to us and saying, hey, Hamilton, yours is seeming like there's some issues here. And they wanted to work with us at the time, but we thought, let's really understand our own data performance before we start working with other parties.
So you've really kind of been given like a benchmark to hit. And that's quite a nudge to get you to take a second look at your liability.
Right.
So I mean, and so you guys have been really progressive at kind of answering that. So I'm curious. So you do have some access to Canada-wide data. Are there other cities or transit services that are doing similar in-house data analysis? Is there a gold standard for that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there is a transportation research board, and they have a guidebook on service reliability that they've published, and so it has quite a bit of detail about how agencies can measure reliability. The key thing for us, though, is measuring not from our own internal perspective, but measuring from that customer perspective. So much goes into how you perceive reliability. It could mean how you make connections between buses. It could be the real-time information that you're seeing on your app and it's not really lining up to your real-world experience. It could be, we have a model in transit called +2 -5, which means that we have a tolerance for buses being 2 minutes early and 5 minutes late. Because of course, when you're driving in a real world experience, you can't be exactly to the second on time at the whole journey. So we have a way of kind of measuring that has a bit of tolerance for +2 -5. But that, from a customer experience, that's a 7-minute window, which could mean that, from a customer point of view, that 7 minutes may feel really huge. So may make you miss a connection, may make you late for your work and that sort of thing. So we really do want to think about it more from the customer perspective and exactly what they're seeing when they're looking at that app and seeing, if it says that the bus will be there in 5 minutes, and I look at the app again 5 minutes later because I don't see my bus, and it says the bus will be there in 5 minutes again, that means something's wrong. Something's happened somewhere, that app is not communicating the right information. And so those kinds of things, all of these things can kind of feed together to create the overall experience. And I think what we want to do is, we haven't necessarily seen that benchmark or that great model for municipality, but we have our own measure that says we're 89% on-time reliability. Yet we're hearing from customers and from CityLAB, which is a pretty credible data crunching company, that it's actually much lower than that. And so we're thinking, okay, maybe our way of measuring it and our customers' perspective are quite different. And so we want to take this approach more from a customer perspective, but still looking at our data, looking at the analysis of that data over time, and looking at the experience through our mobile app in particular and other tools. and making sure that they're all lining up and that they're making sense to each other. And I've seen it myself where I've seen something where the bus says it's going to be there in a minute, and I can see that I've missed the bus and I can see it traveling down the road. So like even within the window of data moving from point to point to point to finally get to my phone, there can be like a minute or two of difference there. And so these minutes count to customers. We know that, and we want to try and develop the plan that really puts forward the best options for customers.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what you see in a potential project with a student group. What kind of deliverables or goals that you're looking for a student group to take on?
Yeah, so we're really open. First and foremost, we love working with students at all three of the colleges and universities in town. Really brilliant, great stuff that's been done with our work so far. And so we're very excited about any of the opportunities that anyone could play in supporting this work. So very recently, we worked on the accessibility of the mobile app even, so making sure that it works for people with disabilities through Mohawk College. So it can take a number of different directions. We think that there's a data, or pretty confident there's a data analysis piece to this that we're using to drive our decision making around how we plan our service, and really wanting to understand that data over time. What is it actually telling us? And we don't have the computing power to kind of crunch those numbers or the analytical know-how to say, okay, this is how we can measure this over time. So we'd love to undertake some activity around that that looks at that, but it could take on a number of other options. It could be about the technology and how the data is transferring from place to place. We have an open data model with this data, so we do make it available, and it is updated very frequently, but maybe it's not being updated enough. Maybe there's technical hurdles with it being transferred around. And those are just things we'd love to learn a bit more about. But we think ultimately it is about the analysis piece, is looking at the data, and possibly a real world experience piece too, because I think it's about, almost auditing the performance of the service and understanding what conditions it's not just about that it's reliable or not. It's probably that it's reliable in certain circumstances and unreliable in other circumstances. Can we use the data, or can we use the analysis to understand what those conditions are that might be driving the unreliability? Is it certain routes? Is it certain parts of the city? Is it certain times of day? A lot can go into those pieces. So we want to we could also look at it from the network and public transit point of view. Is the network itself fully reliable, or are there bits and pieces of it that maybe deserve a bit more attention because maybe they're not currently as reliable as they could be? Our service is a radial system, which means everything goes downtown and then feeds the rest of the city. Those kinds of vulnerabilities, if something happens downtown, it can have a ripple effect across the whole city. So it's those kinds of institutional pieces to the network too that we're really thinking about longer term. How could we improve upon some of those as well? But I think initially it is just looking at the data and trying to understand that experience from a customer point of view, and see where there might be some opportunities to improve.
Do you have any other last things you want to share?
Just that we're really excited about the opportunity, and I think transit's a really interesting thing because, of course, the students use transit, so it has like a real practical, personal value that if they can make these improvements, maybe they'd be the beneficiaries of these exciting things. And it's also a great time to be working in transit. It's been really challenging over the last several months through COVID, of course, as it's been everywhere, and certainly students would understand that with the impacts to their studies. But this is for us an opportunity to be coming out of the pandemic and really trying to put transit on the most positive footing with a really strong and safe model going forward, to be able to build upon it. So you can see that there's investments from all three levels of government happening around transit. They see it as a critical component to the recovery from the pandemic. And so it's a great opportunity, I think, to do something and really kind of help us out and provide a really great outcome that would improve the experience for our customers. So hopefully it's as exciting for the students that might get involved in this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a vital service to everybody in the community, but especially to students as well. So I think you're right. It's quite topical for students. Well,
every city plan that is there, whether it's for seniors, whether it's for youth, students, economics, transit is a fundamental component of that, how people access those opportunities. So every
Mhm.
city plan is connected to transit for sure.